If you look at the curves of outbreaks, they go big peaks and they come down. What we need to do is flatten that down. That would have less people infected. That would ultimately have less deaths. You do that by trying to interfere with the natural flow of the outbreak. So what we're saying today is that although we keep coming in and saying appropriately that as a nation, the risk is relatively low, there are parts of the country right now that are having community spread in which the risk there is clearly a bit more than that.
Hi, I'm Casey Steen on Merced's News Talk 107.3 FM, 1480 AM, KYOS. The COVID situation is really ramping up here in America, in the county. We're now starting some shutdowns.
Just 8 miles up the road from Merced, the small town of Atwater is about to make a major decision. City leaders say they have been proactive in their response to COVID-19, and they are prepared for a potential catastrophe. They were the first in Merced County to declare an emergency situation. They had named their own medical advisor, secured their own proactive gear, and made initial plans for a triage center with up to 2,000 beds. They were all in to slow the curve. However, by the middle of May, after 2 months of business closures, stay-at-home orders, and pandemic protocols, there were no more than a dozen confirmed COVID-19 cases in Atwater. The calls to reopen the town were getting louder. Even the city's medical advisor says it's time to reopen or face widespread financial ruin. And then, this happens.
What I see and what I hear is that we're in an economic state of emergency, and that's what we need to act on. And what I'm proposing to you, to the city manager and city attorney, is that, we can have a sanctuary city for everything, right? We can sanctuary city for illegals, sanctuary city for anything. Why don't we become a sanctuary city for small business? Why don't we become a community where small business can operate without the fear of the strong arm of government coming down upon them? That's what we need to look at. We're here to work for our residents, not for us and not for government.
Councilman Brian Raymond's idea gained support from his colleagues. They quickly declare Atwater a sanctuary city for business and religious worship. While the term sanctuary city commonly refers to protecting undocumented immigrants, residents who gather at City Hall gave this new version a standing ovation. Meanwhile, the mayor of Atwater is thinking the move might ruffle some feathers in the state capitol. But what he doesn't see coming is exactly how much attention this city was about to receive.
No idea the very next day that it would be a national news story, and quite overwhelming with all the media coverage and news, and positive and negative.
And tonight, a new kind of sanctuary city in the North Valley. Atwater cleared their businesses for reopening.
The resolution also allows places like churches to reopen.
Imagine this, one California city defying Governor Gavin Newsom's statewide stay-at-home orders by declaring sanctuary status and getting people back to work in that community.
That's right. Joining us now with more is Atwater Mayor Paul Creighton. Hey, Paul, Mayor, Mr. Mayor, nice to see you.
And we're going to be pushing for a narrative basically to be standing united with the city of Atwater.
Yes, and thank you all.
Atwater became the first sanctuary city for businesses in a 4-0 vote. The move drops any shelter-in-place enforcement by the city, allowing businesses to operate and encouraging them to follow CDC guidelines.
I heard a lot of times over and over again that the city councils they're your leader, the mayor's your leader. They're not your leaders, they're your representatives. I'm only, as mayor, I'm the representative of the city of Atwater. I'm not the leader of Atwater. When you get people that think that they're your leader, they don't listen to you anymore. Everybody I've talked to in politics, they mean to do well, and then they get in there and things change for whatever reason. And you get a lot of pressure from people wanting you to do things and other influences, and you have to resist that and focus on why are you there? What's wrong? To make things better, you have to listen. I don't know all the answers. If everybody around me's, contributing and has good ideas, you have to listen to it all. So let me be clear about how we became a sanctuary city. We listened, again, going back to being a representative of the people, we listened to the people, the business owners and the residents. We had everything in place for this catastrophe that's about to happen, and we agreed after that we would sign up for the 2 weeks to slow the curve. Crickets. The whole town's locked down. Nobody's moving at all. The whole state's locked down. Whole country's locked down. And the 2 weeks came and went, and we didn't see the results that we thought were going to come, was this mass casualty and mass, sickness. We got elective surgeries, people that need heart bypasses, that's all being postponed. So like, we're getting communication from our neighbors and citizens that, hey, I'm supposed to get a heart bypass, and now because COVID, when's it going to free up? When can we get our operations done? So all these knee replacements, hip replacements, the whole gamut of medical was put on hold. Now we're in our third week. We're like, come on, what's going on? We need to go back to normal. We're losing nurses and medical workers. Clinics shut down completely. So the dentist, the eye doctor, the chiropractor, everybody was shut down. So you can only sustain for so long. And then that first month's lease payment, rent payment, and mortgage payment were due. And then the phone started ringing. What are you guys doing? When are we going to open back up? What's going on? There's nothing happening.
Residents.
Yeah, from the citizens of Atwater and businesses. There is no plan. You guys figure something out. This is killing us. We just made a $7,000 rent payment from my restaurant. I got a phone call. What are you going to do? Who's going to pay for that? I'm paying my employees. It's been a month. Brian Raymond was talking with his neighbor. So they're talking in the driveway, and he comes up with this idea that they have a sanctuary city for everything, for homeless, drug addicts, for whatever you would come up with, you can be a sanctuary city. So I said, well, let's just open up under the guise of a sanctuary city for small business and religion, so that the churches can open back up and the business can get back to open. And we can do that within our jurisdiction, the city limits. Not forcing anybody to do anything, but giving them the free right to open back up and operate freely. But we do it safe and sound, and you're all adults. It's a free country, and we'll support that, and we'll protect you within all of our police powers in the city. But if you had a liquor license or a health permit or some kind of state license, you have to weigh those options yourself. So none of us thought anybody would be paying attention. Why does anybody want to hear what Atwater's doing? There's the people that were offended that we use the word sanctuary as in their vocabulary only, and then others were like, that was genius. And we got some pushback locally in the local communities for using that word, but the majority of people thought it was brilliant. And then nationally, we got Texas, Florida, New York, Wisconsin, Chicago, or Illinois, Denver, Colorado. I instantly got phone calls from mayors all across those states saying we want to do the same thing. Never in a million years would we have thought of that. It's kind of surreal. Like people are listening to what we have to say, and we're doing the right thing. Probably about 11 different national news organizations, ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, done Fox and Friends, Varney and Co., Dennis Prager Show, Glenn Beck. Oh man, I'm forgetting a couple of ABC shows, one CBS show, a lot of talk radio. So as far as Chicago, I was on an AM radio show in Chicago. LA, down there, 2 or 3 different radio programs, several days in a row. San Francisco, probably 4 or 5 different times of radio programs on the drive home and stuff. And it was kind of refreshing because they were really wanting to know what our mentality was, why we did that, and how creative we got in doing that. It was it's kind of like a no-brainer. And I said, well, yeah. Councilman Raymond came up with the idea, and we all thought, yeah, why didn't we think of that? And that's kind of how the rest of the country took that too. Like, yeah, if you can declare this or declare that, why not do it to protect your own people and save them? This place wouldn't be here where we're interviewing right now. Had we not done that, this place wouldn't have survived.
Donations are already coming in to save at least one struggling mom and pop diner in Atwater, Granny's Pantry. When Mayor Creighton mentions it on the Glenn Beck radio program, one woman drove 5 hours from her home in San Bernardino County to hand the owner $4,000 in cash. For its part, the state of California, facing widespread protests, does begin to loosen restrictions across the state, including Merced County by the end of May.
So we opened up, and then a week later, the governor opened up California. And then it was copacetic, everybody's fine. There's like, okay, we're back to normal. And then the shutdown came again. Like, okay, my God, you don't know what you're doing here? Open, close, open, close. You're like, what are we doing?
COVID-19 cases more than quadruple in Merced County during the month of June. By July 1st, right before Independence Day, local restaurants, bars, and other venues are hit again with state orders to shut down. The COVID surge continues, and by mid-July, gyms, churches, and hair salons are also told to close their doors. Atwater, however, refuses to give in.
So we reaffirmed our sanctuary city resolution and held our ground. And then the governor sent us the letter that sent it to the news media at 4:40, and we received it at 5:01. Said you're going to get your federal relief dollars because you won't send the word sanctuary city. You can't use that word. And then he used the nexus that we did something that broke his rules after the budget was approved, which you can't do that either. And they're federal funds. So we're smaller than 50,000 people, so our money goes to the governor. The governor's supposed to give us ours. We were only eligible for $64,000 because we didn't incur a crazy amount of cost. And then he sends this letter that he's going to keep our federal money because we used the word sanctuary city. So we said, okay, that's fine, but we've only accounted for 64,000, and the news story that day was 180,000. And then 2 days later, I get called by CNN that we're almost $500,000 that we as a city gave up. I'm like, okay, we'll take the $500,000, but we only ran up a $64,000 bill that we're only eligible for. So how do we get it? So the narrative got spun up. The governor was mad at us, still is mad at us. So you throw something fake out there and see if it sticks, and it just grew. It went from 180 to 225, and by that Friday or by that next Friday, we were $500,000 that we lost. And to this day, we're only eligible for 64, but we want that $500,000.
Despite the stance in Atwater, state funding is coming to the Central Valley, home of the highest concentration of essential employees in the state. Most of these workers are clustered together in agricultural fields and food processing plants. Governor Newsom says he will direct $52 million to improve testing, tracing, and quarantine protocols. Positive test rates in the region are now as high as 17.7%, while the state average is 7.8%. In particular, members of the Latino community are being disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, and that's extremely worrisome for Merced County, where Latinos make up 61% of the population.
My brother got the virus in July and my parents in August. When it hits you, it's like in friends, family start getting it, then you say, wow, this is very serious. My name is Rodrigo Espinosa. I'm a Merced County Supervisor District 1. I got elected in 2016 and I got re-elected last year. I came from Mexico when I was 10 and we landed in Delhi with my parents and my siblings. I'm the second oldest of 6. Went to high school in Livingston High School, graduated in '87. Went to Stanislaus State, and we've already, always been farming peaches and almonds in the Delhi area. In 2002, I got some friends because a lot of people in the community, Livingston, Delhi knew me. They got me to run for city council in Livingston, and so I did 2 terms as city council member, and then we had issues there, so I got pushed into being mayor in 2010. And I got re-elected 3 times, 2010, 2016, and that's when I decided to run for supervisors. Livingston is, just like a lot of cities, but I always say every community is different. It's a really diverse community, and I'm thankful for that. We appreciate Livingston, but Livingston is about 70% Hispanic, 20% East Indian from India, but we have Japanese, we have citizens, we have Filipinos, Portuguese. So it's just very diverse, and I think it's a small community of 15,000 people now, and I think just like all of California, and I think that we're blessed to have a nice community there. My district, I think, is the highest percentage of Hispanics. From what I know, it's 72% Hispanics, but I got a lot of different, than Livingston, I have a lot of Hmong community, very diverse too. I all started hearing about, this COVID, and numbers started going up, and still, I didn't think it was that serious. Or, at one point I heard it was on TV that up to 90% of the United States would probably be, get the virus, and it's like, well, I didn't think it was serious. So, but no, through the summer, we had the first shutdown, and with more people getting sick, and but I kept telling people then, hey, wear your mask, sanitize, and especially my wife. She said, hey, every time you go out, you got kids, and to make sure you wear a mask. A big employer there in Livingston, it started affecting a lot of people there with that's why they're vaccinated right now, because they're essential. They work closely in Foster Farms, and we have many deaths there.
Foster Farms is the biggest employer in Merced County. More than 3,700 people work at the company's chicken processing plant in Livingston, California. In August, word begins to spread that the plant has been experiencing a significant COVID-19 outbreak. Many employees have fallen ill, while many others feel vulnerable working in close proximity to one another. Workplace safety officials start to investigate.
We started hearing about employees pushing Foster Farms to test and the county to test, and we all started getting emails with my colleagues about Livingston, and so we had to deal with the health department and the state, and they were negotiating with the state and CDC, and of course when the President Trump stated that all businesses are essential, we had to deal with that because they didn't feel like they should be tested. It was the obligation of the state and the counties individually, and they didn't feel like they needed, whether they don't have the funds or they didn't want to put up the funds, I don't know specifically, but they were negotiating with our CEO and staff and our health department, especially with outbreaks going on and fatalities happening. There was a lot of negotiations, and so I was privy to some of them and some of them I didn't. And with the outcry from my employees, we had more pressure put on, and especially with the state CDC and the federal CDC, which is Centers for Disease Control. They finally ended up negotiating with Foster Farms and the state that the federal CDC would come in and support with the test kits, and Foster Farms would put the manpower to do the testing, and so that way the employees will feel more comfortable.
Before the end of the month, the number of Foster Farms workers who tested positive for the virus will number more than 350, including 8 who die from the disease. Public health officials ordered the facility to shut down, but the action wasn't as easy as just putting up a "we're closed" sign in the window.
How are you going to put out a business, but at the same time, you're going to cut the jobs of, 3,000 plus employees, right? So they want us to shut down, but who's going to pay the employees? And so finally they agreed to shut down for 7 days and test employees 3 times before they went back to work. Yeah, that was the solution.
The workplace outbreak at Foster Farms is considered the worst in Merced County and one of the deadliest in California during the pandemic of 2020. Foster Farms will remain under scrutiny over its health and safety measures as the Livingston plant contends with another, smaller COVID outbreak in December. Low-wage essential workers are not the only ones getting special attention from the state. There's also a multitude of at-risk homeless people with no place to recuperate or quarantine from COVID-19. In the early days of the pandemic, Governor Newsom and supporters have been pioneering a first-of-its-kind initiative called Project Roomkey. Officials have secured thousands of hotel and motel rooms across the state, including one, the Merced Inn and Suites.
Through all these different places I lived, I always had like Christmas trees decorated. So the end of the spirited Christmas is my favorite. I have never panhandled in the whole time I've been out here. I've been thankful because other people that knew me, what I was doing out there and involved in the community and helping with different dinners, different things they have. Mission was one, helping them put up flyers. Sue, very involved in the community. So I was not the normal homeless person where I'm just going, okay, give us a chance, let's do this. When they had the cleanup, first cleanup they had, the homeless were involved, so they felt like they had a worth in life, and this is very important.
For the past decade, 65-year-old Monica Villa has been experiencing homelessness often setting up a tent in makeshift camps or inside some private property gateway. But Villa does not fit the stereotype of a homeless person living in the shadows. Instead, she is very well known in the town. She advocates for the downtrodden, she volunteers at the community events, and she has been a perennial candidate for a seat on the Merced City Council. Surprisingly, with absolutely no campaign money, Villa has received thousands of votes over the years, though she has never come close to winning. So in 2020, when the COVID-19 pandemic hits, it's no surprise that Villa is both living homeless and running for mayor of Merced. Then, Project Room Key arrives, and suddenly, Villa finds herself with a room at the inn.
I was out that one day, so they just HSA happened to be out there housing people. So as they were signing them up, and then we just got a tote, which you're not able to see. I got a big bag with my recyclables in it, but they gave us this tote, whatever you could fit in there. Hey, we'll get you a room, we'll sign you up, take your information, how old are you, and what kind of difficulties that you have, you know, and just did a nice brief physical whatever you needed, you know, say if I'd been on a walker or whatever. So no one's allowed to come here and get a room automatically. They have to go through a process, where I just felt very fortunate that just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And then the one good thing I have to point out is, got to bring my dog. So a lot of people here have their pets. Dory Fish, she is an American pit bull. She sometimes thinks she's a little lap dog. I don't know what kind. She was just a stray out there. 14 babies. Oh my gosh. She was so skinny thin you wouldn't have even known. So that was an experience. It was exciting because it was warm, and I'm going, okay, my dog is safe. I can be here, shower, that's cool. The lunches they gave us weren't the best, but then I definitely went out and got something where I could cook. And then thought 3 months. Then, okay, you're going to be a little longer. I said, okay, got comfortable. I got my own blankets. Everything pretty much in this room is mine. That you're allowed, I'll move, and you can see I've got a stack of books I read. In this one cabinet where my TV is that is supposed to be, you know, that was an entertainment center. And you can come look that I'll move, where I have my crock pot set up, the microwave, and my food stored. And the couch where this blanket's mine, you know, making it my own home. Now, you know, to me, this is my home for the moment. Still waiting to find a place, but finances really are not sad. I get disability, a little social, but it's not enough to get my own place. We actually had room service when I first came here for about 3 months. That they would come knock on our door, hey, do you need some towels, do you need your sheets changed, whatever, we'd give them to them, and they would take them down and wash us, which is a plus, because they'll wash our stuff. And then all of a sudden that ended. And another thing that's changed as far as shampoo, different things that the hotel isn't taking care of, which my understanding is it's costing them $2,100 a month, and we don't have the necessities. Are you kidding me?
The state sends millions of dollars to the cities and counties to pay for the non-congregate shelters like the Merced Inn and Suites. The program becomes a savior for Villa and many others in Merced for months on end. However, living conditions at the location gradually start to deteriorate. Villa and other residents complain of the lack of basic necessities. The rooms are overcrowded with people not eligible for the project. Neighbors warn of drug dealing and street fights out in the parking lot, and police patrols begin to frequent the site.
Here you're supposed to have something that's going to make my life easier, and in fact, it's not. On the street, I knew what I had, didn't have, and dealt with it. And here, and then being restricted to the room once the COVID came, but other people are running up and down the way, not wearing their masks, and even the staff So who knows where this will go, but half of them are out because of COVID. The thing was being social, that I feel repressed here, that I'm not able to, and I understand but there's still plenty of people out there that are homeless and okay, and they'd rather be out there. There have been people here that might have it, so they put them in here. They're not supposed to come out, and they do, and I'm going, what the hell is up with this shit? You put me here, I'm really restricted, my dog is, and I'll come out and bleach this area. When I have my neighbors, I'll go from that door to this door, spray my door down. I've got towels when my homeless family comes over. I've got towels with the bleach so they can wash their hands and all before I feed them, because I want them to be clean. You know, they're out on the streets, and they're very appreciative. When it was warm, I would give them a towel to wash their face off, and these little things that make such a difference. This is another irritation, 24/7. And when I broke my knee, they wanted me to go downstairs, and I said, no, I can't move anyway. But 24/7, you have this noise going on. No management. And at night, oh my God, these windows across the way, I don't know who's up there. They're constantly screaming, yelling, fighting. People are downstairs. They're throwing stuff at these people. These people are trying to throw stuff up. No security whatsoever with this hotel. So it's just unreal. I had one woman that lives down there that went to go across the street to get some cigarettes, and she got beat up. They didn't do anything here, management, and they go, well, where are your cameras? Oh, well, yeah, they have cameras, but they don't work. Well, how convenient. All these people up and down here, and marijuana's legal, so, I mean, there was at one point that the smell was so strong here that irritated me, because I don't smoke it, and say someone that doesn't smoke, and I've started smoking again. I hadn't smoked for 9 years. The stress here. Oh, and then the pain, they won't give me any pain medication I was on. I said, well, let me just have a beer. Let me go get something to drink. And we're not supposed to be drinking up here. Oh, well, you can't come in my room, so how do you know? You don't see me acting out. That one person at one time tried to say I was drunk and being obnoxious, and I said, no, I'm just normally like that, thank you. I'm not sure, and I think whoever's supposed to tell me isn't gonna want to tell me. But I told him before when I was ready to go, you better give me a 3-day notice, because I need to get all this stuff into my storage. I said, well, you can get me a tent, a cook stove, and you can buy me like a month's supply of propane, let's see, dog food. And they're like, no, you're not going to go back on the streets. And I said, I wouldn't have a problem.
In this slide, a data analysis reveals within our preschool through second grade students that 56% as an overall average desire in-person learning over other learning options. 8th grade reflects 47% desire to return in person, while all other grade levels reflect 50% or more choosing in-person learning. The breakdown by individual grade level demonstrates our MCSD community's desire a return to in-person learning.
Big issue in this community is we were so divided. 50-50, right? Pretty much even now, we're still divided. 50% want their students in-person learning, 50% still want to stay on distance learning. So we're a very divided community. I think that's one of the unique challenges of Merced. And there are intelligent, educated people on both sides. And that makes it very difficult to make decisions. It makes it very difficult to have a unified approach or unified strategy.
Deep in the fall of 2020, a window of opportunity opens. Children in Merced from kindergarten to 8th grade have not been in a classroom for 7 long months, ever since the pandemic began. But in late October, all the schools in Merced County become eligible for reopening under the state's red tier guidelines. Educators push forward new plans, while the local school board conducts a series of meetings highlighted by hours and hours of mixed public comment. Some say the learning loss will have long-lasting impacts. Many others say that the district is moving too fast, with whole families battling the pandemic on several fronts. Political candidate Bertie Olivares-Kidwell, just days away from winning a seat on the district board, calls in to publicly tell school leaders to take a pause. One of the board trustees speaks strongly to the contrary and makes a call for action.
I've heard a lot of fear tonight. We need to reconcile with that. We need to address people's concerns. But we also need to understand who we work for. We work for the kids. There are a significant number of children who are not doing well on the distance learning environment that they've been on since March. And by the way, attendance is dropping. So I understand that there are a lot of issues that have been woven up in here, guys, right? We also heard that we're not communicating with non-English speaking communities very well. I completely agree. I'm the board member who had a community meeting all in Spanish. A couple weeks ago, I was talking to people about this very same problem. We need to fix that problem. That is a different problem than what we're here to talk about tonight. Let us not lose focus on who we work for. Public education exists for children, does not exist for the grown-ups.
Ultimately, the board chooses to keep most kids away from classrooms, including all junior high school students. And sure enough, December brings another COVID surge and another round of closures. However, the decision to not open middle schools in the fall of 2020 would have consequences at the start of 2021.
I'm not here to mandate. I'm not one to give ultimatums. I'm not in that position. I simply want people aware of what I'm seeing day in, day out. This is a future generation here, and I want them to know, because again, unless you live it, it's really difficult for people to understand. For instance, like you go back a year ago, sir, most of our headlines in the paper with regard to education were actually the parents that were being sarked because their kids weren't going to school. Oh yeah, you remember? Now a year later, we're not even thinking about that. We're not even thinking about the fact that there are some parents out there that really have no interest in making sure their child is in school. So we don't know the numbers yet, but I'm willing to bet that it's a pretty substantial number of computers out there that are logged on. There's nobody sitting behind them.
In many countries, all restrictions have been lifted and life looks much like it did before the pandemic. So, is it over? No, it's most certainly not over. I know that's not the message you want to hear, and it's definitely not the message I want to deliver. It's not over anywhere until it's over everywhere.